Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part two of Masters of the World Geopolitical Simulator. Um, uh, um, and in this episode, we are going to be dealing with uh, the Secret Service, I believe, and Army. I might have that completely wrong, but we shall see, because I know we dealt with the economic tab and industry tab last time round. So yeah, it'll be the next two along. And thank you for those who have taken the time to watch this series thus far. Um, I really appreciate it. You guys know who you are. Um, um, so yeah, thank you. Yeah, so as I had said, we're going to be dealing with primarily the army and defense and police and housing and uh, family, population, and work and retirement, as you can see there. So first of all, army army operations or military operations. Um, so basically, this is just when you decide to declare war on a particular country, it's going to give you the option to have men stationed in those countries. So basically, you've got to delegate how many men are abroad fighting conflicts and things like that. Obviously, you can leave that up to the AI if you want via this button here. Uh, Leave control of military forces or armed forces in the hands of the military top brass. That basically means that, if you can't be bothered to micromanage, then do that. Attack country is self-explanatory. Um, launch launched nuclear weapons and launched biological weapons. Now, this last tab is very hard to actually achieve because obviously there are conventions dictating that you can't actually do this by international law. So, as in real life, your your military chiefs are going to be like, well, that's against the law, blah blah blah. Um, However, I must stress at this point that technically speaking, so is nuclear weapons. So I don't understand why they're quite willing for you to launch a nuclear bomb if you so wish. It's quite ridiculous in that regard, and that is one of only a few, I should say, gripes about this game. So I think you should be able to launch one and and as well as the other, but I can also understand. But you can do that in extreme circumstances, like if you're on the verge of like losing the war and the military feel that it's necessary, then they will authorize like use. But I've only seen it once happen. But yeah. With that said, let's move on to the army itself. So this obviously details how many men you have in your army and how many reservists and and commandos. Now, commandos is a new addition to this game, and it's basically a unit of the game that is not easily detected. So it's very useful in times of heightened tensions. Say if you wanted to um, sabotage a strategic location like a port that is quite close to your country, then obviously send in the commandos. That carries with it some risk, because if you get spotted, then the commandos get shot down and subsequent um, escalation ensues. And here you've got your military hardware, your list of military hardware. I should say at this point, the two columns are basically committed and actual. So committed or commissioned even. I cannot read. Um, um, it basically is that column there, where you basically say how much hardware you want to be on order. And also, I must stress at this point that if you do end up ordering new military hardware, say from another country, then other countries will notice as a result. Uh, um, can be a bit hazardous at times. Um, Also, you can downsize the army and whatnot, and its hardware, but generally do that when people are on your side. You've got your air force now. Strategical weapons are interesting because that just is your navy and your submarines and aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines. Now here we don't have many nuclear submarines, but we have more than Britain, obviously. 43. This this one here. If they notice that you're gonna be building more nuclear submarines, they will actually call a summit, and they'll send spies in to your country to have a detailed report of what you're actually doing in terms of military build-up. And if they feel, if the world feels at this point that you're gearing up for war, then they can sometimes call an EU, what the hell am I talking about? Not EU, UN summit to basically tell you to stop what you're doing. So that's the construction, and that's under NBC. Now, under legislation, you've got your typical options here, which so abolish national service. I wouldn't do that at China just yet because you need a sizable military force at this moment in time to basically ward off enemies like for example India. If they see that you're being a little bit weak, they will exploit and then call up reservists, install martial law. Only do that in times of civil civil unrest. So basically, you're on the verge of civil war, and that basically happens a lot in this game. If you don't know what you're doing, that will happen time and time again. Only do that in extreme circumstances. Okay, and then you've got manage arm embargoes, and that's as it says, manage who you trade weapons with and who you don't trade weapons with. Now, if you trade with a particular nation that has got an arms embargo on it, again the same thing will happen where the international community will frown upon it. They won't necessarily do anything to begin with, but if they think that either one of you is becoming too powerful, they will put into force the UN and basically tell you off, which I've had that happen in the past, especially when you're dealing with terrorist groups. But that's another particular video. No, it'll be later on in this video actually, and that's where you create all your military bases and blah blah blah. Satellite launchers and all your standard military hardware there. So, and then you've got your budget and things, which is what we're in there. So these are all the treaties that. So sorry, I was on actually budget at the beginning of this video. So NBC here is uh, um, all your treaties and whatnot, and basically nefarious activities that you could do as a country. So, for example, I could produce a nuclear missile in secret, or I can dismantle my nuclear weapons. But again, if I end up producing, then if they spot me doing that, then they'll get concerned, obviously, because I'm building up my most sort of terrible weapon, if you know what I mean. And basically, the non-proliferation treaty is the treaty that dictates that no one from the nuclear capable states will not launch a nuclear weapon at one another, basically ensuring that putting the mutual assured destruction theory into practice. If you want me to explain that theory in further detail, I will do. But basically, just take it as a guarantee, basically. So only do that if you feel particularly adventurous, because people will again start worrying. And also, this last tab here, it's very interesting because you can basically get weapons and material from the black market. They will cost you more, and sometimes their quality won't be as good. But if you need to build military hardware or get military hardware, and you don't want to do it through the official channels, this is the way to go. With that said, let's move on to immigration. And as you can see here, all your typical policies for integration, or immigration rather. You've got to establish an integration policy, so as the name suggests, you're going to encourage immigrants to integrate into the society. I believe China doesn't have one. No, it doesn't. So yeah, I mean, you can do that if you're a multi-ethnic society, and then obviously you can launch a massive like anti-immigrant campaign, a legal immigrant, I should say. At this point, you can also regulate tourist visas and regulate people's voting rights in your country. So that's all fairly self-explanatory. And then we have justice. Now, justice is very, very funny, as you're probably well aware. China isn't really too brilliant when it comes to the independent judiciary. But so that basically determines, establish legislation on arms sales, for instance. So in that particular case, you can basically say, right, anyone can own a gun, or anyone can own a gun if it's for hunting and other such purposes under a license system, basically. And you can have just straightforward licensing and all that good stuff. Or you could have it completely regulated. Armistice is basically, you're going to give people a free pass So you know that's that's all fine. And then you've got the option here to join the international court. Now this particular tab is okay. But basically, what that means is, you're going to abide by international law, and your human rights is going to be upstanding of that of the, standard of the UN, obviously. Um, and yeah, this particular tab you won't be able to do when you first start out in the game for obvious reasons because China doesn't really pay attention to human rights. And they will tell you that. They will tell you to sort out your human rights issues before making another proposal. And then you've got to determine the value and the not value, the balance of power between the judiciary and the state. And that basically means is how independent is the judiciary. Um, you can have it totally independent, as is Britain. No, actually, I think Britain is under our. It's totally independent. I've forgotten my politics there. I apologise. So, yeah, that's all self explanatory. You can basically have the legal system do your bidding. That's essentially what that means. And then you've got prisons, prisoners, political prisoners that you can obviously have, and constructions, and that will be basically your prisoners. So we've just Secret Service. Now I'm probably gonna have to break this into two particular parts because Secret Service you can actually do a lot with. But I'm going to give you a brief overview of this tab, and then if you want me to go into further detail, then I can do. So essentially, you've got all your activities there. I don't know if you can see them on screen. Basically, you can put money into cyber protection, cyber intelligence, military intelligence, and so forth, and so you know, all that good stuff. And then you've got the terrorist tab and sees all the terrorists in your country that are operating in your country. And then you've got you can create spy networks, order a spy satellite. So that particular tab there is very interesting because satellites can be used to determine the military state of a particular country. Because if you zoom out and see this little blue thing here, that is actually a spy satellite, a military satellite. And if you move it over a particular country, you are able to see the movements of that country in terms of its military assets. You can also keep secret files on particular people, such as hidden state. That particular tab you can basically have on anyone at any time. And then Sign Agent 001 is basically your secret agent. Your like amazing agent, if you know what I mean. So yeah, and then so that's the external. Internal again is can you bug people, certain people. You can investigate certain people. You can curate scandals of political parties and all that wonderful good stuff. You can even assassinate a person if you want. So with that said, we're going to move on to the police. which again is your standard. What are you going to invest in, all that good stuff. And yeah, you can just basically peruse at your ledger. Now, I always maintain a large police force because of civil order, especially when I'm trying to implement some radical policies. Um, and yeah, so maintain a good police force. And then this is all the things that you can do. So you can determine, ID checks and things if you have any. Proceed to arresting people, establish surveillance cameras, regulate the speed limit, as you can all see here. So that's all good stuff. Um, and then transport again. You can invest in certain things, and having good stuff is obviously gonna um, improve the economy of your nation because people are able to use good roads and they'll get there faster. I particularly like to invest in the rail network and air transport uh, for China because it's so big. And this particular tab, you can basically build new roads, etc., etc. Build a new high-speed rail, which is very important in my opinion because it enables people to get to A to B faster, obviously. So, in terms of things of that nature, if you've got a bit of extra money, then I, by all means, would say go ahead and invest because, as it says, China is a large country and it will need that investment. So, and then you've got housing, which basically allows you to build new housing or refurb dilapidated housing. In that case, I would also choose dilapidated housing, refurbish them because it's generally cheaper and you can get people into houses a lot quicker because it's less build time. So here you've got all the things that you can do in terms of establish a rent subsidy, or a state rent increase, or maybe you want to enable people to buy their own property. For that, you need to establish an aid program for people to purchase property, as you can see there. So yeah, I would personally establish a rent allowance because um, China's housing situation is relatively poor at this point. So you need to get people in houses, and you need to build a lot of refurbished housing as well to keep the cost down and things like that. So yeah, we've dealt with housing. So next is family, and family is just your standard sort of social policy. So establish a family allowance, for instance, and that's good for the lower classes because you're able to improve their purchasing power. You can also basically legalize homosexuality, which comes across very popular, as you can imagine, with the masses. But in terms of the party, they absolutely hate it, and they will get rid of you if you don't have the support of the people. So that's always good. Oh yes, I should always mention up in the right hand corner here is your popularity. As you can see, mine is at 50%, and that basically determines um, the popularity of yourself, not necessarily the party as a whole. Um, so yeah, so that's family, things like that. So again, population that just determines how many people are in your country, how many people are dying, how many people are being born, how many people are coming in, the mortality rate of children, um, and the amount of people below the poverty line. Obviously, China is going to be huge because it's a huge country, but obviously, we are going to improve that as time goes on. And China is actually doing that in real life at the moment. Over the last couple of years, they've managed to bring over I think it's 100 million people out of poverty, which is freaking astounding. I think the figure is higher, but I'm working on old statistics here, so bear that in mind. And then you've got work and things, and again, all pretty much self-explanatory. The legislation is established a minimum wage, establish the average working week, and establish a job seekers allowance sort of thing. I wouldn't do that necessarily straight away, purely because China's economy is still weak, and therefore, if any economic events happen outside the country, and it will indirectly hurt you, um, and that will obviously lead to you to not be able to keep up the social spending. So I would also try and minimise that as much as possible. Uh, um, Not saying that I'm a conservative or anything. I'm actually, um, um, well, I'm apolitical. So I believe in neither. I believe in neither policies. They have their merits and disadvantages. As far as each political philosophy um, has and doesn't have, sort of thing. So yeah, and that's the way that's the way I am. I don't really want to bring a political viewpoint into this particular channel, so I'm sorry if you guys wanted to know my political views. It's not going to happen, basically. Um, yeah, so moving on swiftly. And then we've got health and retirement, and again, that's all to do with the health side of things. Establish how many, how much money you're going to put in each individual sector, including health staff and all that good stuff, and how much the health staff are paid. So I'm looking at my frame rate; it's being ridiculous at the moment, and I don't know why. And this is the construction tab, obviously telling you what you can build and what you need to maybe build. And the ministers on this game will tell you what you need to do in terms of like immediate policies. But generally, they like to overstate the issue sometimes. So I would take that with a pinch of salt. I think it's kind of necessary for you to look at everything in detail before you go ahead and commit to a policy. Don't necessarily agree with them, um, just like in real life. Because trust me, this guy will want to get you in trouble in terms of your budget and things like that. Because I've overextended myself in the past just by a touch, but that touch was kind of difficult to recoup because I didn't really want a higher tax threshold and things like that. Um, so yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this second part of. Oh no, I haven't showed you legislation. Silly me. So that basically tells you the retirement age and blah blah blah, and this is all self-explanatory. You, excuse me 1 second. I'll be back.